All right, the first movie on our list today is Mad Max, starring Mel frickin' Gibson. Take it away, Jude. What is this movie all about?
I want to tell you something.
Please.
All of these were a first watch for me.
Nice. Congratulations.
It was a lot.
Welcome to the club.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought that Thunderdome was the first one. So when Kadish played the trailer for the first one, I was like, what the fuck is that? He was like, it's Mad Max.
That's Mad Max.
And I was
original.
like, are we watching that? He was like, yeah. And I was like, oh shit, I better make a drink. 1979, Mad Max, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour, 28 minutes. This had a budget of $300,000.
Yes, it did.
What do you think this brought into the box office?
I have no idea.
Fair?
No clue.
$2 million.
6 million.
$8.7 million.
Nice.
It's
Good
a
for
hit.
it.
It's a blockbuster.
Yeah.
Oh, so an addendum to that, Jude, you're not wrong. Just just saying that. So like its initial run, it had a very limited American theatrical release, and most of that money was made in Australia. But over the course of its lifetime, it's made over $100 million.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's a cult movie now.
Oh, yeah. And it's spun off into hugely successful movies. There's a cult of people somewhere outside of Vegas that like dress up and do Mad Max shit.
They have a Wasteland Weekend here.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's a cult of people who go and play Mad Max.
I want to join because that sounds like a blast.
I have an old...
Sounds cool in theory. I don't want to go.
Oh, I do. So I have an old ass freaking motorcycle in my garage that needs to be like grunged up a little bit, put some spikes on it and go out there and hang out with those guys.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Shout out to Wasteland Weekend.
Yes. We need to go hang out with those guys.
we do.
We should do a live podcast from there.
I know. That would be great.
With a big, like the dude for the guitar in the fourth movie with the big speakers. That'll just be
God.
us with flamethrowers.
Every time they showed that dude on the guitar, I was like, what the fuck?
The drummers. We got to go back to the first movie.
Yeah, first movie. Good.
All right, sir.
Jude, take it away.
In a couple of years, Australia turns into a real shithole, and the streets are covered in hooligans running amok and looting gasoline. Max is a cop who's got it all. A wife he can't say I love you to, a son, somebody named Sprog, and a sweet V8 engine to run down evildoers. Too bad he was driving his family wagon with the shitty fan belt when the toe cutter gang ran his family down. Now the only thing Max has to live for is revenge.
Yes. Is that it?
Yeah.
That's a wonderful synopsis.
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. This movie's very simple.
It is.
Yes.
But I'm going to have to admit this, and I'm going to get some hate in the comments. I had no clue what the fuck was going on for at least 45 minutes.
It's a weird
For
movie.
sure.
I was like, I don't know what's happening, but there's a lot of car crashes. Okay,
Everyone
this is
has
cool.
a bonkers name.
Who's that? Oh, it's Toe Cutter.
Oh, like, why do you think that is an intimidating name for a gang? The toe cutter. He's gonna cut my toe?
So here's the thing: is like
Like your walk gets fucking fucked up if they cut your toes off.
No, this movie is very steeped in kind of like Australian culture, and in Australian culture, toe cutter was like a term that they used for internal affairs people.
Oh.
In the police station, and so like it was basically like another term for cop killer. In that sense, and so like when they named the character Toe Cutter, they were implying that this is the cop killer.
Yeah, I like was so confused. The first 45 minutes of this movie is so bonkers. Like there's a couple car chases. There's like some kind of a sleazy lawyer involved at some point.
I was like, are these all the same gang or are there factions of different gangs?
The cop uniform is just like leather and a blue shirt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, all right.
The cop uniform is the car.
Yeah. Here's the thing I've never been able to quite figure out with any of these movies is how far after the apocalypse are we?
It's
you know, because obviously the further along we go, the farther we are after.
I don't think we are in full apocalypse yet.
Not in this first
it's just
movie.
getting bad.
Yeah, well, one of the things I liked about this movie is like they don't say like in the year 1999 or something like that.
They're just like a few years from now.
Well, they say in the not too distant future. But basically, George Miller, the reason that he set the movie in a post-apocalypse is because they didn't have the budget to actually get nice sets, and so like they were forced.
Makes sense.
They were forced to shoot at places that were like really run down.
Just on
and
a highway.
Yeah.
They were like, nobody's coming. Let's go.
Well, there's like,
oh no, they shot this whole thing like without permits. Like it was kind of funny because like they would shut down stretches of road so that they could shoot this stuff. And whenever the police came by, they'd have to like hide what they were doing real quick. and eventually the police caught on to what they were doing. They're like, hey, you guys shooting a movie? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. Can we help? And so the police eventually like became friends with the production, and they would like help them like redirect traffic.
Oh my God, I love stories like that.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's awesome. Australian police are like, oh, right on, mate. Let's do it.
Dude, you guys in your stupid fucking Australian accents.
Hey,
my God.
The question, the stories behind the making of this movie are absolutely bonkers, because like, keep in mind in 1979, like there were no like safety standards for any of this stuff. Like this wasn't a professional crew with like union people and experienced people. So they were just kind of making it up as they went along. Like most of the people in this movie got paid with beer.
That's fine.
Because
Oh my
they were like
God.
extras.
That's the most
These
Australian.
are my people.
Yeah, that's the most Australian thing I've ever heard. That's amazing.
I express everything with alcohol. You bought a house? Alcohol.
I mean, the cinematographer for this movie told a story about how like he was on the back of like a motorcycle with the camera, you know, driving, filming a scene next to like Mel Gibson driving the car. And the entire time he was filming that, he's like, I was pretty sure I was going to die,
Yep.
you know, because they were just like shooting it like so fast and loose. And,
Dude, you guys know how much I love stunt workers,
Yeah.
people who do that kind of stuff. Like this movie, I was watching this and I'm like, that dude didn't have any safety equipment on.
Nope.
He just was like, what do you want me to do? Oh, fly off the motorcycle head 1st? Gotcha.
Flip
Yeah,
around
we're
a couple
good.
of times.
There was one stunt where this motorcycle, I think it was when Mad Max came up behind this gang and like smashed through them and they all kind of fell off. There's this one guy who fell and then his bike slid behind him and hit him in the back of the head.
Oh, God.
And it's all on camera. And I'm like, I think that guy got hurt.
No, mate, we're using that.
the Mad Max movies have a long history of like stunts going horribly wrong and then using them in the movie.
Yeah.
But the
Was it the first one where the guy like flew in the air and flipped around
no,
a bunch
that
of
was
times?
the second one.
That's the next one.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But in this one, so like for instance, at the beginning when basically the Knight Rider kind of mows into this like blue van, that they did is they removed the engine from it, so it was just like kind of a husk of a shell, so that it was easier for them to kind of push into like the road and originally the car was just supposed to like hit it, and it was gonna like kind of
Push it out of the way.
push it out of the way and keep going.
This thing.
But because the engine was missing, it was missing the weight to keep it grounded, and so it went spinning like a freaking
Yeah.
top, and everyone was like, "Holy shit!" Like, so many people almost died.
I'm watching this
and
movie.
they're like, are you getting that? You got that, right?
Were we rolling? Yeah, I was watching this movie and that exact scene popped up. And it's fairly early in the movie. It's like during that main opening chase scene. And I remember watching it. And I'm like, that van went freaking flying. Like, how fast were they going to smash into that thing?
Fast.
It literally just like tumbles like a top and flies off the road. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Well, the funniest thing was, so like there's a scene where the Knight Rider basically like drives his car into like a tank, and like there's this spectacular explosion, right? And originally, when they were getting ready to shoot it, they strapped like a rocket to the car to drive it into this thing to get the explosion, right? So like no one was in the car. They just had this rocket, and they ignited the rocket to shoot the car into the thing to get the explosion. So they were all set up to do it. And the rocket ignited, and immediately the car like veered off its path, and like they had to like run away from the car until the rocket extinguished itself, and then they're like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do that.
God, do they have that on film somewhere?
The late 70s, early 80s were a wild ride.
Oh, yeah. There's
Especially in Australia. So the funny thing about this movie is that George Miller, the writer and director of the film, so he was a emergency room doctor, basically. So like when people came in from, in need of like emergency surgery and stuff like that, he was the guy who did it. In fact, that's how he financed this film, was by taking his salary as an emergency room doctor and just like putting it towards this movie. But he saw so many like horrific like car accident injuries
From the set of this movie.
that like that's what initially inspired him to make this movie. So initially Mad Max was about a post-apocalyptic Earth, in the sense that like gasoline oil had kind of dried up, and gasoline was like hard to come by, and so people were getting in all these horrific car accidents. And the character of Max was a journalist who was like traveling around and witnessing all these horrific car crashes and stuff like that, and slowly going insane because of all like the tragedy that he was seeing, and hence Mad Max. And when he brought on some co-writers to help him develop the movie, they were like, yeah, that's kind of a downer, mate. Let's make it more of an exciting thing. And so they turned him into a cop who chases.
He's a tough cop.
Yeah, they turned him into a cop that chases down like these these hooligans. And it was one of those things where they just kept the name of the movie because they were like, well, it rhymes.
That's a good, that's a good damn freaking name. So let's break down the story real quick, because this is, I think, honestly, this movie and its story it's actually a tragedy.
Yeah.
Like it's not a happy-go-lucky movie.
No.
It's not an action 80s movie like we're used to with like Sylvester Stallone, where there's like a happy ending at the end.
Yeah.
This is a tragedy.
Yeah.
So,
Shit's going bad.
yeah. So Max is a cop that lives on the edge of freaking wherever the hell. Nowhere. And
he's got a great house.
he's got a really nice house.
Yeah.
And he's got a wife and a kid. And it's funny because like you're watching this movie and he's a cop. All the other cops kind of look up to him. He's like the exceptional one. He's the one who's really surprisingly good at his job.
They're like, "Hi, mate. We're going to give
chaser.
you a special car."
Yeah, he's their best interceptor, and they keep they're constantly afraid that he's going to quit the force, and so they keep trying to bribe him with like better cars to keep him around.
Well, he is quitting the force.
Well, that's what
not quite yet.
He goes through this whole thing like after the first opening chase scene, which again I had no idea what was going on in this movie for the first half, but he's going through this chase scene. He's getting like a little loopy. He's getting a little crazy. He feels like, I'm enjoying this too much. It's one of the reasons why he's like, I'm liking this carnage way too much. I need to get away from it. He goes to his sergeant or his boss, whatever, the top
Fifi.
cop. And
His name's Fifi.
Fifi. He shows up at this dude's place. The dude's just wearing leather chaps and a necktie made out of a black scarf with no shirt while he's watering his plants. And he's got this giant mustache. And Max is like, hey, man, I got to quit, man.
It's Australia.
So I'm like, I couldn't help but watch this. And I'm like, what is that dude wearing?
This whole movie, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. The fashion choices throughout all the Mad Max movies are kind of questionable.
That's what makes them great.
The next one, great. Don't even get me started on the freaking Road Warrior movie, dude.
Also,
What is your problem?
This is such a movie in this frame of time, because like throughout the movie it's established that he has a wife and a child, and throughout the movie like he and his wife are just going places, and I'm like, where the fuck is their kid? And then they just show the kid like in the back of the station wagon,
in the back, hanging out.
Yeah, they're like
Well,
having
where else would he be?
a full like day at the beach, and then a picnic, and then they're making love, and then like it's a full day. And I was like, where the hell did they give the kid to like the auntie or something? Is somebody else watching the kid? Nope, the kid's just in the back of the car.
He's fine.
He's in the fucking trunk. He's fine.
And that car has like the weird like window murals of like space exploration.
Oh my God,
their shaggin' wagon is dope. I love that thing. Anyway, so he comes to terms with, he's like, I gotta quit the force. I'm liking this carnage too much. I feel like I'm going crazy. So he tells his boss he leaves. His boss bribes him again. He's like, dude, I'll tell you what, man. Take a vacation.
Yeah.
Grow a beard.
Yeah.
And then
Great advice.
when you come back, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
He's like, just take a couple weeks and grow a beard. Like, I love that was the thing. Go grow a beard, dude. You're good.
I want to bring that back.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what you need?
You need to grow a beard.
You need to grow a beard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
It's
thing.
going to
Let it grow
change your whole perspective.
It
will,
does.
it does.
It's
It
going to
does.
change how people see you, and it's going to change how you see the world.
So anyway, so he goes to his boss. The outfit that his boss is wearing just blew my mind. I couldn't take my eyes off it. I was just like, what is happening right
That's
now?
how you should have.
This is freaking leather chaps.
That's how you should have came into work today.
Leather chaps and no shirt.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would have been hilarious. It's like, oh, look, he's cosplaying.
Let me go get my gimp suit.
he's playing
because I
Fifi.
have leather pants at home that I'm just going to throw on
We
real
do have a
quick.
Comic-Con coming up in a couple months. You could cosplay as Fifi.
I would rather cosplay as Mad Max.
Well, no, I'm going to be Fat Max. And you can be Fifi.
Anyway, so he quits. He goes on a nice little vacation with his family. I love those scenes where he's with his wife, he's with his kids.
Well,
he's-
you forgot to mention, so like his best friend on the force, Goose,
Oh, yeah.
is a motorcycle cop, and he gets in a really bad car accident because of the toe cutter gang and gets set on fire.
I can't take the toe cutter gang seriously.
And so like he's got 3rd-degree burns all over his body, and when Max sees him, it freaks him out, and that's what
Yeah.
the impetus for him wanting to,
That's
to
right.
quit.
Yeah, that was a dark scene too, where he's like the toe cutter gang goes in like literally just lights the dude on fire. I didn't think he would survive.
Do you think that these characters were the inspiration for Top Gun?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Goose is Goose from Top Gun.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
agree.
and it's kind of interesting because George Miller's style, like he's very much where like he implies a lot of stuff where he doesn't explicitly show it to you, and it's one of those weird Mandela effects where like a lot of people think that the Mad Max movies are like hyper violent, even though like he doesn't really show a lot of the violence, mostly because in the first one he couldn't afford to, but like in subsequent ones, he like kind of cuts away before like something violent happens, and it leaves it to your imagination to kind of like fill in the lines.
Yeah. And Max doesn't like willy-nilly murder people. He mostly just punches them.
Yeah.
But there's a scene in this movie where basically the toe cutter gang rolls into this town after the Knight Rider is kind of like boxed up and he's being shipped off to be buried, and they want to intercept his coffin. And during the scene, there's like a local like boy and girl who have like a really nice car, and they try to sneak out of town in order to get away from the gang. And the gang sees the car and they're like, "Oh, that's a nice car. And
Let's go destroy it."
Yeah. So like they run
God damn it, car!
Yeah.
I want you.
They run it down, and then like the next thing we see is basically Max and Goose are alerted to like this is going on, so they go to try to intercept the gang. And when they get there, there's this guy with like just bare ass like running through a field.
Yeah.
And it's implied that like the gang raped the dude as well as the girl, and the kind of like I want to say like henchman, I guess, of Toe Cutter. His name is Johnny the Boy, and he's like just this kind of dude who was like sitting there and like he had just raped either like the guy or the girl, but he was just kind of like, I'm spent, I'm just gonna chill out here. And that's when they arrest him, and Goose sees what he did to like this girl who's like basically despondent, and so like he gets really obsessed with making sure that this guy pays for what he did. And so Johnny the Boy, when he goes to like the police station, his lawyers come, and basically no one shows up to testify against him because they're so afraid of the Toe Cutter gang. And so he gets let loose, and Goose loses his shit and starts attacking him. And then Goose gets suspended, and Johnny the Boy wants to get revenge on him for, arresting him and beating him up. And so Toe Cutter, basically like they sabotage his car and get him in a wreck. And then Toe Cutter makes Johnny the Boy burn him alive.
Yeah.
And it's
So
also kind of implied that Toe Cutter and Johnny the Boy are like a homosexual couple. and that's why like Toe Cutter shows him so much favorability, even though he's so obviously a fuck up. So like
I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's very subtle.
So I'm following Max. Like that makes sense now. But I can see the scenes in my head, and at the time I'm like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, same.
But having you explain it to me, kind of okay, yeah, I can see see the steps.
And in this first movie, basically, like there's no nuclear war yet. What happens is that society is deteriorating because of the lack of fossil fuels, because basically they're running out of gasoline is essentially the thing. And so these roving bands of motorcyclists and kind of like road thugs or like whatever.
Warriors, if you will.
Yeah, so like their whole thing is like they don't want to give up their gas guzzlers, and so they're running around trying to confiscate as much gasoline and automobiles as possible because they want to hoard it and make it last as long as it possibly can. And that's negatively affecting just like the normal people. And as society is collapsing, basically the police are under more and more stress to try and do something about it, but they're kind of like pigeon-toed because like they can't do anything about it.
The police are pretty much useless at this point in society. The gangs, the street gangs, the Toe Cutter gang, and people like them, they're basically taking over society at this point. This is an anarchy society. The cops have no fucking
this is basically
really to do anything. The society is corrupt, and it's just they do what they do, and that's why Max is frustrated and he's done with it because their world is over.
Yeah,
it's done.
This movie is the death knell of civilization, basically.
So it's about anarchy taking over society, and that's basically the over encompassing story of this thing. It's how society crumbles and destroys itself.
And while Max is off with his family, he's kind of like minding his own business. This biker gang shows up and starts terrorizing his family. Yeah. And it was a weird like sequence of events where I think his wife was at the beach. Is where
they go to the little resort town. And
it was just strange to me because I'm watching this movie and she's like at the beach and then she realizes that she's alone, it's dangerous, they're coming after her, so she starts running and then she's
takes
in
a little nappy poo.
She's in like the forest at some point.
So what happened was when she went down to like the beach to get like her kid an ice cream, the toe cutter gang was like sleeping on the beach, and they see this like attractive single woman down there, and they're like, oh, let's go rape that bitch or like whatever. So they start harassing her, and she, in order to get away, she like knees toe cutter in the groin. And then when she's driving away, one of them like throws a chain on her car, and she takes off so quickly that it literally rips his arm off because like his arm, the chain was wrapped around his arm. And so the toe cutter gang looks at that like that woman just, you know, messed up one of our own. We have to go get her. And so they follow her to this like farm where like her and Max are kind of laying low, and then they start
fixing their fan belt and stuff.
Yeah, and so they start trying to like you know harass her again, and in doing so they run her over along with like her baby. And basically like both of them die, and Max, you know, his world is shattered.
Yeah.
And he basically becomes the thing that he feared in the beginning, where like he loses all of his humanity. He just goes off and goes to get revenge.
He puts his leather boots back on. I love it when he
pulls the box out.
Yeah, that's the moment, right?
And
That's the
it's
John Wick moment that we kind of see these days, where he's like,
I like that comparison.
yeah, like he goes, you know what? I put this thing away. I don't want to do it anymore. But then, you know, the tragedy of losing his entire family, and he's like, all right, that's it. This is who I am.
He's got nothing else.
Yeah. And
He's not a cop anymore at that point. Now he's
No,
just,
he's-
now
He's a road warrior.
Well, he's a vigilante. He's out for revenge.
Well, he
now,
goes
and
and gets that badass freaking black car that they built for him.
yeah.
And he's like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get revenge. And they even
Special Pursuit.
call him out.
Interceptor. Yeah.
If you listen to the radio chatter while he's out, they're like, we have a rogue cop on the run. He stole some equipment. He's out there doing things he's not supposed to be doing. And it's just Max. And he's just like, freaking, I'm going to kill these guys.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because when you contrast him with the two cops that we see at the beginning of the movie, where they like keep fucking up their car and like they can't even like
Just
continue
keep
the
going.
pursuit. Yeah, you know, Max is so much more better at you know kind of like doing things.
He's actually better without Goose.
A little bit, yeah. Well, he's not reserved anymore.
Yeah.
Like I think when he was with Goose, he was still trying to follow those rules. Now that he's just on his own.
The inhibitions are
rules?
gone.
Yeah, there's a couple of rules.
There's no rules.
There's some etiquette that they had to follow.
Where we're going,
the fuck outta
we
here.
don't need
These
rules.
No, but it was just
The
like
rules,
he just
the rules were stop these people no matter what. In fact, I probably think they'd probably prefer not to have to bring him in to see a judge at this point because
Maybe.
they're all pieces of shit.
maybe.
Let's just be done with them.
But he goes off on him. I love it when he pulls out that car. I don't even know what type of freaking car it is, but it's dope.
That's such a moment.
There's also a scene in this movie where Max gets shot in the leg.
Oh yeah, he gets jacked up in this movie.
And it's kind of funny because in all the movies that come after this one, Max has this like leg brace, and so like they carry over the fact that he got shot from movie to movie, but like they play it so fast and loose with all the other continuity.
Yeah.
I'm just kinda like, that's a weird choice.
It's a weird thing that they have to go with that.
Even Tom Hardy's Mad Max has
Has
like
a
the
leg brace on it. Yeah. It was kind of cool for me because I was watching this and I'm like, it could very easily have been like he just goes on revenge and he just murders everybody and he's so good at what he does that nobody can touch him. But he's not a Gary Stu. He gets freaking
he's
jacked
not.
up.
You know,
I love a movie that's like an action movie or like a post-apocalyptic movie or dystopia movie that like you have your hero that's not invulnerable. It really irritates me when you have like a movie like this that it's like full of action. The hero
Never
is
gets
just
hurt.
like impervious.
Yeah.
But like having your main character and your hero in the story who gets fucked up along the way, it makes you invest so much more.
Yeah.
Because like you're like, oh shit about it.
Yeah.
Whereas like other movies that were like Gunpowder Milkshake, where like nothing fucking happened to her the whole time. You're like, this is fucking boring.
Yeah.
I'm not believing it. But like movies like this, where like your main character actually gets fucked up along the way, it gives you a personal stake.
And then
in it.
even though he gets jacked up, he just freaking wraps that sucker up and he like crawls his way back to his car. He goes off and he just continues his mission.
Yeah, you know the thing that I noticed about this movie. I hadn't watched this movie been a few years, probably been at least a decade since I've watched this movie. I had forgotten how much setup there was for the last 10 minutes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a slow burn.
This whole movie is set up for the last 10 minutes of this movie because Mel Gibson's family doesn't die until
It's
there's
like an hour
about
and 15
15 minutes left of this thing. And then the rest of it's just him,
Yeah.
you know,
Going off
and finding these guys. And it's very quick.
So
And you're like, damn.
I this is probably kind of psycho of me, but I love the way he takes out that lawyer dude. Where he like freaking handcuffs his ankle to a burning truck and then like just leaves the match there, walks away.
It's like, This
Is that the original
that
like
was
walk
the-
away from an explosion character?
maybe I'm not sure about that.
Because that's a trope now. But
But-
this is 1979. I don't know if that's ever happened before.
And that was go ahead.
I just want to put this movie in a little bit of context for the time in which it was made.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the reasons that this movie got the attention that it did and kind of like brought the Australian film market to the masses is because when this movie came out, nobody had this type of visceral visual style. Like, even though this movie is kind of slow, the parts where like the car chases and the car wrecks and all this other stuff, like nobody was doing that type of thing around this time. Like the two biggest car chases you could point to before Mad Max came out was Steve McQueen's Bullet in the 60s, and then there was the French Connection in the early 70s. And those were like the two car chases in films that like people just like lost their minds over. But car chases are really hard to do before the age of CGI, in the sense that like there were a lot of safety issues, there were logistic issues.
Australia was like, fuck it, we're doing it.
well, that was the thing, is like because this movie was made so fast and loose, like no regulation, no safety standards, nothing like that, they were able to do some like truly spectacular like wrecks and really crazy like car chase stunt work and stuff like that.
Moving forward, they were like, we should not do that anymore.
Well, yeah. So like basically like George Miller's kind of like, almost music video style, like editing, where like it was quick cuts. It was like super, like the camera was always moving. Like it was so visceral that it put everything else that was coming out of Hollywood to shame in terms of like what they were doing with the action in this movie. And that's the thing that caught like the attention of Spielberg and all this other stuff. And at the time, Mel Gibson, this was like his first movie. And he got the part because the actor who played Goose was his roommate, and he was cast because like he knew how to ride a motorcycle. It wasn't for his acting ability. And so he was like, hey, you got pot from my mate here, Mel. And Mel was actually, he was a US citizen, but he grew up in Melbourne, I think. And so like he had the accent and stuff. And when he came in to audition for the part, they were like, yeah, this guy looks like a leading man. And so like this was the thing that kind of launched Mel Gibson on the scene. I think he got paid like 10 grand.
He's so freaking cool in this movie, though. So cool.
It's a great way to introduce him. Man.
I know, right? What were you going to say? You had something going on.
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I have been thinking about this movie. I love how I love the low budgetness of it.
Usually you don't.
I normally don't, but man, I feel like this is like a guerrilla made movie.
It really was.
It was.
Yeah, it kind of was.
And,
Yeah.
I know we've watched a lot of really crappy, shitty, low budget movies in the last couple of years.
Excuse me.
But for some reason, this one resonates with me a little bit more. And I discovered this movie after The Road Warrior. I think like most people my age did. We didn't even know this thing existed until after the second movie came out, because that was more of a box office commercial.
Second one was dumb. I can't wait to talk about
whereas
that.
this movie is more of it was almost like an underground kind of thing back then.
So yeah, you want to know like how
I remember I had to watch this movie. It was probably on VHS tape. I probably saw it at the.
How I think of this movie is very similar to how I see El Mariachi. Like I watched Desperado first, and I was like, Desperado's freaking dope.
Yes,
that's Road Warrior.
Yeah,
and then I went back and I was like, what is this low budget movie that like El Mariachi? I've never heard of this before. That's Mad Max.
Yeah, I feel like watching all of these for the first time in 1 week, it was like I could see the progression, and it feels like the first movie is like the first draft, and then the second movie they were like, okay, now we have a budget.
And we know what we're doing.
Yeah. So this is the second draft. And then the third movie, they were like, well, it's the fucking 80s. and then Fury Road, they were like, okay, here's a story.
Yeah.
It's cohesive in this universe. And you're like, oh, this is
what they wanted to do.
What the first Mad Max should have been.
Well, you know how low budget and guerrilla this first Mad Max movie was. So like when they finished shooting it, and again, they had to shoot entirely without permits, without safety standards, without unions. They had to run away from the cops to keep from getting shut down and stuff like that.
Until the cops got on board. And
they were paying people in beer. And then like when the movie was all shot, they're like, oh, what do we do with it now? and so like they started editing it at this guy's house. and they didn't have any like actual film editing equipment, so they had to build it themselves.
Oh, that's so
in order to actually like edit the movie.
That's so freaking dope, dude.
It's like I love these Australian people who make these movies like this. My brain's immediately going to the
Wormwood.
guys.
Yeah, Wormwood Apocalypse.
It's like, man, 'cause that's a dope fucking movie.
Hey,
But it was so underground guerrilla style filmmaking. It was just, I love it. It's
I
just-
should have looked it up, and I didn't. I kept telling myself to, and I just didn't. But what was that movie that we watched for the show? I want to. We had Tom with us. So I don't think maybe one of you were here or something, and it was like post-apocalyptic, and they were like the weird like Elvis.
Oh, Six String Samurai.
That's it.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't
that is the movie I kept thinking about every time I was like when I was watching this, and I kept getting flashbacks to this, and I was like, I'm getting such like Six String Samurai vibes off of this, and it had that energy.
But if you think about like how crazy the editing in this movie is, like super like quick cuts, like that there's scenes like when the Knight Rider like kind of wipes out his car at the beginning. There are a couple frames of like his eyes bugging out of his head, like right before the explosion happens.
Yeah.
And those cuts are so quick. And they were doing that on like homemade turntables, like sitting there looking at the film and like splicing it together with tape and shit.
That's so dope, dude.
It's like, I love these.
Awesome.
I love these kind of movies. I mean, I don't like a lot of these kind of movies also, but meeting, starting doing the show, meeting Kadish and everybody and some other people that we've met, I always wonder how they watch these kind of movies, wondering how
it was made,
how they did some of these wild and crazy things back then, when they didn't have the special effects budgets, and it was just like what's the word, gonzo filmmaking, kind of
guerrilla filmmaking,
that kind of stuff. And it's just, it's interesting. I don't know. Is there like a documentary about these that I haven't seen or anything?
There might. I think that there was something that they did for Fury Road that kind of covers a little bit of this stuff, but most of it's from like interviews and commentaries, and things of that nature. But it was like a completely different era of filmmaking that a lot of people like kind of don't realize. The context of watching these movies, because like nowadays in 2022 we watch a movie like this and we're just like, okay, like I'm thinking like, oh, this was made when CGI was, a thing, and like, safety standards were a thing, and they planned this stuff out. It's just like, nope, this was a totally different era in which this movie was made.
Let me ask this question really quick before we move on. Is this a movie that we would want to see remade, modernized? You wouldn't want to see.
Well, they did.
I mean, you kind of did that with
They
Fury
already
Road.
did. Yeah,
No,
it's
but
called
like
Fury
go
Road.
back to the beginning, because Fury Road's set way after the apocalypse.
Okay, yeah.
Like go back to the beginning
And do the tragedy of losing his family again.
Let's learn about. Would we want to see something like this redone and see what it would look like with modern effects and a budget?
I think
or are we good
unless
with
it
just
was
the low budget stuff?
unless it was George Miller who did it.
Sure.
I mean, I think I would prefer what they're doing now, which is just keep telling
going.
stories.
Just keep going forward. Yeah.
and-
Because we always do prequels and shit nowadays. So I kind of wonder if people would be into something like that.
Another interesting thing about this is like, so it was like the most successful independent film ever made up until the Blair Witch Project came out. But when it got a limited release in the United States, the studio that was releasing it was afraid that people couldn't understand the Australian accents. And so like they had it overdubbed. And so the original thing was like not Mel Gibson's voice. None of the characters were like, actually like using their real voice. And then later on, I think when home video kind of became a thing and stuff like that, they went back to the original voice thing. And it was kind of funny because when me and Jude were watching it, we had to put the subtitles on. It was like, we can't understand what they're saying.
Oh yeah, it was real. I didn't have subtitles. I had no clue what the hell was going on. All right, so let's do final thoughts on the original Mad Max, man. Vader. What do you final thoughts? Give it a rating. What would you rate this movie?
Man,
It's gonna be tough because it's a
It
damn
is.
good
I
movie.
feel
But
like you have to like rate it in the Mad Max universe.
Oh,
You can't rate it
well,
against other
I mean, you can
things.
go. I mean, these movies are easily going to go 4, 2, 3, 1 for me in that,
Yeah.
order.
Yeah.
But that's like judging Star Wars and Star Trek movies. I mean, it's just whatever. It's everybody's going to have a different order. This movie, I don't know what my grade's going to be. I'm just going to put it probably in the middle.
3,
Probably a 2.5.
2.5, 3.
Yeah. The pacing's weird. It's seems like they're trying to tell you a story, but it gets a little convoluted and stuff. You get a little confused about where they're going and what they're trying to do, especially with his family and stuff, and the cops, when we're trying to learn about the cops. But
Can I give you a little context
Sure.
for 1979 when this came out?
Yeah.
Other movies that came out in the same year were Star Trek: The Motion Picture,
Mhm.
The Warriors,
Yeah.
Salem's Lot, Alien,
Oh man.
shit.
Yeah.
You can't compare nothing to that.
Yeah.
Escape from Alcatraz,
Okay.
Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
So these are the
Yeah.
movies that came out in the same year as this.
Yeah, I'm
if
just-
that helps.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I judge movies on emotion and visual, how happy they make my eyes and my ears. And I think I'm just gonna put this right in the middle. I'm gonna go 2.5 because I do think it's a little confusing, and some of the stuff made me scratch my head. But yeah, it was learning about this movie after The Road Warrior was it makes it more interesting to me, and it's just kind of like a weird little setup movie.
Yeah, it's an origin story.
But it's
Yeah.
cool. It's cool to see where Max came from, you know, and yeah, I don't know what else really to
Okay.
say about it. It's cool. I mean, I like it. Knight Rider's cool. Toe Cutter's cool. You know, but they're weird little.
No, they're not.
No, they're kind of cool. That's what they're there for. They're assholes. They're anarchists. They're a crazy biker gang, you know, with their crotch rockets. And their bikes suck. They're terrible bikes.
Oh, those no, dude.
but
For
no.
the 70s,
No,
those
dude,
bikes were
they
dope.
had Harleys
all
back
those
then.
bikes were donated
Yeah.
to the production. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to
Those
use bikes.
like every time I saw one of those motorcycles, I was like, I could strip that down and turn it into a freaking cafe racer in a heartbeat. That'd be dope.
Yeah, they remind me of all these little biker gangs.
Because I've
running around the
got a
streets
bike
right
in my garage, dude, and I'm seriously, I want to road warrior that shit out, dude.
Let's
Like,
put spikes on it.
yes,
now. But it's one of my
Will you
favorite.
teach me how to solder?
sure. You mean weld? Okay, that's two different things, but that's all right.
Teach me both.
Okay,
I'm just gonna say it's one of my favorite low budget movies.
okay,
from
cool.
that era.
Yeah, coming from you, that's a lot though.
Yeah,
because
so-
you do not
yeah.
like low budget movies.
No, I really don't.
All right, cool.
So-
Jude, final thoughts. Give it a rating.
This is a mess.
Okay.
So there are 4 movies in this universe. This is number 4 for
Oh,
sure.
your least favorite. Wow.
Oh
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
I saw the trailer and I was like, I'm gonna need a drink, and then 10 minutes in, I was like, I need another drink, and then by the end, I was a lot of drinks in and still was like, what the fuck is happening? It's a great first draft, and
Yeah.
and it sparked this whole universe, which I appreciate. And so this is like, I just feel like these are completed movies that should have just been like first draft scripts.
Mhm.
This movie is bananas bonkers, which is a term I've never used before. It's not a 1-star crap fest for me.
Thank God.
No.
But the whole, like, I appreciate it more now, like talking about it and knowing like what it like inspired.
Right.
While I was watching it, and it was a first watch for me, while I was watching it, I was like, I have no fucking idea. This movie is like fucking crazy and stupid. I don't know that I get it, but there were parts of it that were like great. So I guess it's probably a 2-star in the Mad Max universe,
Okay.
and it's number 4 in the 4 movies that we're going to talk about.
You like Thunderdome better?
Absolutely.
Oh my God. All right, Kadish,
The
final
fuck is
thoughts.
wrong with you?
Shut up. Final thoughts. Give it a rating.
So I completely agree with my lovely lady here. As a student of film, like I can appreciate the story behind the making of this movie. I can appreciate what it did for the time in which it was made and released. It's a very slow and weird narrative to the story. And honestly, the first 10 minutes and the last 15 minutes are probably the best parts of the movie.
Yeah.
So like that long slog in the middle was just kind of like, I was like, okay, let's get on with it. But for being George Miller's first movie and, you know, him self-financing it and doing all these gonzo things and kind of revolutionizing like how people look at like, you know, action scenes and stuff like that right before like the golden age of the 80s got started. Introducing the world to Mel Gibson and you know, that type of thing. There's a lot of really great things that this movie did, and it's very influential, but in terms of just sheer entertainment, I got to go with like 2 stars because
Okay.
it is a mess of a narrative. The action scenes are cool, but they're kind of few and far in between. That's like a budget thing. Originally, like they had like way more scenes that they wanted to do, but they just couldn't afford to.
Also, they named their kid Sprog.
Sprog.
What?
That's a dope ass.
That's a great
Should have
name.
used that.
Should have
name.
used it.
Damn it! It's not too late to change it.
Yeah, there were lots of weird names in this movie.
I'm gonna name my next pet Sprog.
Do it, dude.
But the fact
Give him a spike collar.
the fact that this movie kind of revolutionized the Australian film market and put them on the world stage and made the Australian government realize, like, oh, maybe we should try different types of movies.
Maybe we should do more movies.
Yeah. You know, like that was a big deal. And it led directly to our next movie, The Road Warrior, which was even more influential than this one. But this is the type of movie that inspired like Steven Spielberg and made him think like, oh, like maybe, you know, like we can do things a little bit different visually than what, you know, Hollywood, you know, has been doing in the past. And so like it was a big movie for filmmakers.
Picture it. Mad Max, but in the ocean.
Oh, that would be that's Waterworld.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, two solid stars for me.
Okay. I think I like this movie a little bit better than you guys. This is closer to a 3 for me. So I'm going to give it 2.5. You guys know I'm a sucker for stunts.
Yeah.
I'm watching this movie and I'm just like, I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they survived it.
I'm sure those people that were all injured doing stunts for this movie appreciate your 2.5.
None of the people in this movie were stunt performers. It was all like the actors doing this stuff.
Yeah,
that's so
and they
pretty.
for sure aren't moving forward from this movie either.
And the people who did do like the stunt driving and stuff like that, they were just people they found was like, hey, you can drive really good. You want to be in our movie? And they're like,
I'm
okay.
gonna give it a 3 because what did we give
Can you
Wormwood?
drive a car really fast?
The first Wormwood movie, also in
that's
Australia.
that's like a 4 for me.
Yeah,
that was
I mean,
awesome.
Wormwood was
I will-
great.
Wormwood's great.
Wormwood's my favorite movie of the year.
has
so far.
a better no
Yeah.
shit. Wormwood has a better story structure to it. It makes more sense.
Has zombies.
I was confused by the beginning half of this movie. Like I had no idea what was going on until Kadish like spelled it out for me. I was like, I guess there's a lawyer involved. Some biker gang shit's going on. I don't know. So I was very confused. I think the editing was a little weird. It has a really long, slow period in the middle. I think if you were never seen this movie, watch the whole thing. But if you've seen it before and you're like, well, I really want to watch the first Mad Max because I'm watching, you know, if you're watching the trilogy or something, I would say just pick it up to when the wife runs into the biker gang.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like pick it up there and watch that movie. It's like 45 minutes long. It's awesome.
So
I actually think if you watch The Road Warrior, Thunderdome, and Fury Road, like you wouldn't need this movie. Like you could just watch
Not
those
at all.
three.
Yeah.
Or
disagree.
you could also just watch the first 15 minutes and the last 30 of this one.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
And do it like a mini cut.
Yeah.
Because all the shit in the middle, it really doesn't
I
matter.
feel like I'm just agreeing with everything you guys
Yeah.
are saying. Yes, that. Also that.
and that's also why this is a 2.5 for me, because you can cut out all the stuff in the middle. There's an hour of this movie that you
Like
really don't need.
You watch the family man lose his family, go crazy, get a freaking black Charger,
Yeah.
and go kill people. Like that's
Yeah.
the movie. I could watch 45 minutes of it and be good.